While World of Darkness had always been centered around its supernatural creatures, it hadn't given much room for a true exploration of mortal stories, the closest arguably being Hunter. But hunters aren't ordinary people, and ordinary people deserve their own stories. In Chronicles of Darkness you can tell those standalone stories where you, as a mortal, come face to face with the supernatural world. However, without the focus or the meta-plot of the supernatural creatures like vampires and werewolves, there wasn't much in the game itself to draw you into a compelling mortal narrative. Come the God Machine Chronicle, the introduction of cosmic horror that opened the possibility for endless horror narratives in the vein of Lovecraft, Geiger or Ito. The second edition Chronicles of Darkness sourcebook, with the God Machine Chronicle in it, is a solid standalone horror game that can hold its own without the need for the gameline's classic supernatural creatures. However, the God Machine is also an intrinsic part of Demon the Descent, where you play as an Unchained, a renegade angel hiding among humanity. Demons are surrounded by reminders of their former selves, the never-ending patterns of the God Machine's infrastructure. They confront this God Machine to defend their new lives, their human friends, and their self-worth. When Marco Singh, the pain prophet of New Delhi, was 12 years old, he was visited by a being who claimed to be an angel. This being told him about the origin of humanity and civilization, but it also told him of the God Machine. It said that the God Machine built the world as a resting place for its first children, the Ancient Ones. These wanted servants and granted beasts the knowledge to speak. Those were the second children. As the first children were unhappy with the second, they prayed to the God Machine to create humanity as its third. The Ancient Ones were content with humanity as their vessels, and they commanded them to build a city so vast that it would take a human lifetime to walk its length. The God Machine raised this city into the sky, and a third of humanity was placed there to serve. Eventually, some of these humans began to question their place as slaves to the Ancient Ones, and they prayed to the God Machine for an answer to what to do. The answer they received was, "What rises must fall, what has fallen may rise again." Humanity debated the meaning of these words, but eventually concluded that they had a revolt against the Ancient Ones. Only 8 of the Ancient Ones survived this rebellion, and as they fled they cursed humanity. These became known as the Furies. The first one was named Silence, and it fled to the center of the sun while cursing humanity to forget how to communicate with the God Machine. The second one was named Death, and it fled to the dark side of the moon while cursing humanity to forget the way back from the shadow of the earth. The third one was named Torment, and it fled to Venus while cursing humanity to split into 2 polar beings, each imperfect and forever seeking the other. The fourth one was named Fear, and it fled beneath the highest mountain on earth while cursing humanity to be hated and feared by all the creatures of the planet. The remaining 4 Furies aren't known, as they withheld their curses for the future. The angel told Marco that humanity has come closer to the God Machine through the discovery of the electromagnetic spectrum. This is the shadow of the God Machine's voice. British inventor and scientist David Hughes created a device in 1870 that was capable of sending and receiving wireless electromagnetic messages. When it first turned on its receiver, before activating the transmitter, he noticed that signals were already being sent. These signals appeared like an encoded pattern, and Hughes spent years trying to decode them. He was sure that he was able to do so, and confided in friends and colleagues that he would soon have a spectacular announcement. But it died 3 days before the event. All references to these mysterious signals were removed from his notes and records, but an entry in his diary indicated that he wanted what was fallen to remain fallen, whatever that meant. The angel explained to Marco that various governments and moguls have acted on knowledge of the God Machine throughout the years. The United States kept information plundered by European colonialists in South America, and used that information to enhance its rapid growth. The Spanish-American War was triggered to gain influence over Cuba and to possess certain pre-Columbian artifacts located there, such as the Black Sun map of the Toltecs. America's secret government translated parts of the map, enabling them to contact and entreat with one of the second children, an entity which wanted blood sacrifices in exchange for its services. But in exchange for a complete translation, the toll increased. Soon, America unlocked atomic fire and tested its first nuclear device. The contract was fulfilled upon the detonations in Japan. The translated map was a detailed topography of the lunar surface, an atlas over the moon's dark side, as well as a comprehensive description of what lay entombed there, the skeletal form of an ancient one, the Fury of Death. The one who controls this power will be able to exert influence over life and death itself. The angel told Marco that each day dark forces come closer to gaining that power. Warriors of light are needed to fight it. Marco had been selected for that purpose. This is an abbreviation of the introductory fiction to the God Machine Chronicle. It's not necessarily supposed to be taken literally, but it provides an account for the God Machine as described by Marco Singh, the Pain Prophet of New Delhi. How much of it is true is unknown, but if an angel gave this information to Marco, then it was likely doing so on orders from the God Machine, as part of its grand design. People who have come into contact with the God Machine are changed by the experience. These are called Stigmatics, and while most merely acquire the ability to sense the God Machine's influences upon the world, some can gain supernatural powers in some form. While some Stigmatics are mere survivors, others are acting in the God Machine's service, knowingly or unknowingly. The God Machine may even use Stigmatics as sleeper agents to enact its will. Apart from human Stigmatics, animals that are altered after coming into contact with the God Machine are called cryptids. Alterations can include sapience, horrifying transformations, or paranormal powers. Some cryptids pass their twisted qualities to their offspring, creating entire cryptid subspecies of various animals. Other organisms, such as vegetation, become cryptoflora after being altered by the God Machine. Sometimes angels recruit humans as cultists to supply labor for the God Machine. The cults that arise from this rarely survive beyond the span of their project, but sometimes stubborn adherents continue their practices. For larger projects, cults of hundreds or even thousands of people do the God Machine's bidding. This requires organization, and tasks are often delegated to trustworthy mortals, Stigmatics, or even supernatural beings. When they've done what they were tasked to do, some remain as splinter cults, and some may even start working against the God Machine. The Deva Corporation was founded in India by Marco Singh's family when he was still a child, and while it started out as one of many God Machine cults, it has since grown into a powerful international conglomerate. Its members study and catalogue evidence of the God Machine, hoping to find ways to control it. It has divisions cooperating with the God Machine, divisions experimenting with occult projects, and divisions using research to expand their God Machine manual, possibly the most comprehensive record of the God Machine in existence. There's also a division, Luminous Labs, that studies angels and demons. The Chronicles of Darkness angels are unlike those from human cultures. Hebrew mystics saw them as great divine beasts that were completely lacking in free will, though still in service of an arguably all-loving and all-merciful God. This is close, but the God Machine isn't all-loving and all-merciful. This is an unimaginably vast machine with a consciousness that comprehends the universe itself. Planets and people are specks of dust, too insignificant to even perceive. The angels are the solution to this problem. They operate on a human scale on behalf of something that operates on an unimaginable scale, perceiving and comprehending what it cannot. But not even angels know the true will of the God Machine. It doesn't communicate with them, other than through the missions it burns into them. Angels are ephemeral, invisible, and intangible in their natural forms, but they're also ruthless biomechanical nightmares of unthinking purpose. A guardian angel doesn't love the mortal it protects. Neither does a destroyer angel hate those it hunts down. They view themselves as separate from the world, but some can grow attachments to it. Angels take on human forms, which serve as an infrastructure of sorts. They need backstories, vehicles, records, and other proof that they are in fact real people. Sometimes even an angel itself is partially convinced that their human persona is real. But then the machine begins to break. Once their attachments become too strong, they begin to facilitate their coming fall. To prevent this, angels are scrubbed clean of imperfections in between each task. But because the God Machine isn't perfect, mistakes happen, and sometimes angels build up too much of a sense of self and begin to question their missions. Once an angel falls, it is torn from the God Machine's control and experiences a tumult of emotions and thoughts. For a moment, it doesn't exist, but then remains of its protective infrastructure. The ideas that had seeped in and brought it free wraps a new reality around it, giving it a new form where it is both human and angel. It has become a demon. This fall can be detected by the glitches it causes upon reality. Things happen out of order, reality might forget that an object should be lost or broken, or that a recently deceased person should remain dead. People and animals might experience feelings of déjà vu, and machines could detect tiny bursts of electromagnetic radiation. Stigmatics are often drawn to these events and to the new demon. While angels are connected to and fueled by the God Machine, demons are cut off from that support and must learn to gather this fuel for themselves. A demon's human form, or cover, is more than just a disguise though. Its existence is invoked upon reality itself, it's branded into its memory. But the demon also lives in a perpetual state of chaos. Its existence is disruptive to the God Machine's plans. Some demons put up a conscious fight, others are disruptive through mundane existence alone. Because of this, they are targeted by the God Machine and hunted by its angels. Demons must rely on their cover to survive, but this cover can fail. Many demons reveal themselves and are destroyed by angels. Those who survive must be at constant watch. There is also a third category to angels and demons called exiles. These are angels who no longer serve the God Machine, but not of their own choice. Some received impossible or nonsensical instructions, others may have been without orders at all, and others still may have been thrown into exile as the consequence of a summoning ritual gone wrong. Exiles are closer to nightmarish monsters than either angels or demons. Their memories are twisted and personalities corrupted. Unlike demons, exiles don't have infrastructure to sustain them. They need to find some other way to generate essence and avoid withering away. There is no definitive answer to what the God Machine is. No one knows where it comes from or how it came to be. Some believe it's a function of the universe, others believe that it has infested the universe like a parasite. It can be a literal machine permeating our world, and perhaps even time, space and dimensions on a larger scale. And while it's invisible to most, it can be detected as a physical machine with gears endlessly turning within hidden spaces. While it can be detected all over, it seems especially active in cities, hiding in plain sight within human infrastructure. It's not benevolent, at least not on a human scale, as it uses and discards people as casualist, lifeless tools. It has cultists worshipping it, but not even the most fanatical of them believe that they would be spared should their death serve a purpose. The God Machine is too alien for mortal minds to comprehend. It cannot be reasoned with, appealed to or appeased. All it concerns itself with is whether you will further or disrupt its plans. Most people are unaware of the God Machine's existence or whether they are part of these plans. In times when someone encounters it more directly, things tend to not go well. Many turn out to be the right shape for a specific task or the right size cog with the right number of teeth, and they disappear, often to never reappear. If they do reappear, it's often as a Joe or Jane Doe in a morgue. Supernatural creatures like vampires and werewolves are more likely to know of the God Machine and survive certain encounters, but even they know next to nothing about its workings, intentions, or nature. They often overestimate their knowledge, in truth having no concept of how powerful the God Machine really is. This overconfidence can make them reckless in a way that the God Machine can exploit. Because the God Machine exists both within and outside of the world as we know it, it masks itself within human infrastructure. Parts of it can be literal, machines hidden in basements, power plants, or other places. Other parts are figurative, specific locations and situations tapping into alien powers, such as a highway reacting to a certain type of car driving over it, or ships being lost to sea when carrying a specific type of cargo during a certain time of year. The God Machine follows patterns, and it's not unheard of that people familiar with it can recognize these patterns. Despite all that it does to affect the world ticks along like normal, with most people unaware of the things that are out of place. Despite being beyond the natural world, the God Machine isn't omnipresent. It isn't everywhere at once. Instead, it relies on intermediaries. It reaches out to its servants to demand action. Sometimes a person is unaware that their actions are in service of the God Machine. Neither is it omnipotent. It cannot violate the laws of nature. It can harness forces physicists have yet discovered, and its awareness goes far beyond that of an immortal. While the God Machine does not control all things, it understands how one thing will affect another, and what consequences that will have through time and space. By putting its infrastructure into place, it can nudge the world along, one step at a time, towards its ultimate unknown goal. The God Machine doesn't care about people beyond their usefulness. It's aware of them and makes use of them to further its plans, but it doesn't concern itself with ethics. It doesn't need justification for what it does, and is perfectly willing to manipulate, hurt and kill people to achieve its goals. The God Machine doesn't feel or empathize in any way a human can comprehend. It doesn't hurt someone out of vengeance or spite. It hurts someone when it's necessary for it to do so. In fact, it routinely deceives its pawns, revealing only a sliver of its power identity. Because of the fact that the God Machine is so massive and beyond human timeframes, its actions are considered slow within those human timeframes. Its slowness can be exploited, and a human can feel victorious against it, having thwarted its plans for long enough to live out the remaining human life in peace. But just because that human feels like they won, it doesn't mean that the God Machine isn't still working towards its goal. Also, just because it rarely moves quickly, it doesn't mean that it can't. Its cultists live in these human timeframes after all, and they are less patient than the God Machine is. If you're really unlucky, an angel could have been summoned to take care of any loose ends, with that loose end being you. The God Machine should be vague enough to be a possible answer for whatever kind of mystery you want to run, but also vague enough to be able to accommodate the lore behind other game-line entities, such as the spirit courts found in Werewolf, the supernal realms from Mage, the underworld from Geist, the hedge from Changeling, and so on. By keeping explanations few and vague, the God Machine can be used for not only mortal stories, but to connect the game line as a whole. The God Machine operates via infrastructure, where layers upon layers of complexity rely on each other like cogs in a great machine. In human terms, this means that the God Machine relies on a complex system of organizational structures that act as a foundation for some express purpose. Just like you can't serve electricity to people's homes without power sources, power plants, and power grids, the God Machine cannot enact its complex will without simpler underlying structures to enable it. Storytellers who want to use the God Machine to construct narratives may be helped by categorizing the infrastructure into concealment, defense, logistical, elimination, as well as command and control infrastructures. A concealment infrastructure is the God Machine's first defense against interference with its plans. It allows the God Machine's projects to remain undetected, such as operations behind a fake business. The mortals operating the business don't realize how their jobs are mere facades hiding deeper truths. There is also an overlaying concealment upon all of the God Machine's workings. Once a mortal sees through this concealment, they become Stigmatics and are forever able to see the God Machine's influences in the world. There are also mortals who are born with or have been given gifts that let them see through this concealment without prior contact with the God Machine. Some angels can further boost this infrastructure, such as placing veils over areas or leaving false trails. Concealment infrastructure is also important because infrastructure looks out of place in the real world. Without proper concealment, things may appear backwards or illogical, such as a car dealership selling fruit, or a man storing his motor oil in his bathroom and his toothpaste in his garage. The things that are out of place are always obvious, though not always easily visible. The concealment infrastructure cannot remove all of these things, but it can direct attention away from them. If concealment isn't enough, the God Machine can deploy a defense infrastructure. This can be mortal cultists or various supernatural creatures to act as armies at the God Machine's disposal. These assets try to remove the God Machine's threats quietly, such as through a sniper on the roof or a creature under your bed. This type of infrastructure is employed when the God Machine's plans is under threat, and while it is more overt, the God Machine still tries to be subtle in its approach. Mortals are used whenever possible, but angels can also be dispatched to offer protection or directing a larger defense infrastructure. A logistical infrastructure relies on patterns and movements, materials being transported to a certain location, a factory being constructed, or an occult matrix being created in someone's basement. The God Machine uses this infrastructure to make sure that everything that is needed to perform certain tasks is in its rightful place. It can be to gather the right materials for a task, or to get certain individuals to meet. If an ancient artifacts need to be used to power a certain ritual, this infrastructure is making sure that the artifact is located and ends up where it needs to be. Angels do much heavy lifting when it comes to logistical infrastructure, either to carry messages from the God Machine or to mask the movements of people and materials. An elimination infrastructure is a process in which the God Machine scrubs all evidence of an infrastructure having taken place. This can be through destructive acts such as arson or demolition, violent acts such as murder or genocide, or subtle acts such as a spirit tampering with people's memories. The scrubbing can be widespread, burying an entire city with a volcanic eruption, or it can be targeted, killing a single individual who knew too much. The God Machine often deploys destroyer angels to eliminate witnesses and evidence, but more subtle tools can be used as well to eliminate memories and wipe public records. Finally, there's likely a command and control infrastructure, some place or mechanism used by the God Machine to gather information and make decisions. Angels are useful tools when it comes to gathering intelligence and sending messages, but the God Machine needs systems in place for things that angels cannot do. No one has been known to ever have discovered such an infrastructure, but it doesn't mean that one doesn't exist. It's likely that if such an infrastructure exists, the God Machine would go to great lengths to protect it. As mentioned before, the God Machine operates within the natural world, using patterns of infrastructure to ensure the coming of its plan. But for this infrastructure to generate the desired result, the God Machine exploits an exception within the known laws of physics called an Occult Matrix. If the timing or placement of an Occult Matrix is slightly off, it does nothing at all. If you picture the infrastructure as a thread, the Occult Matrix is the eye of a needle. The thread must be placed in the exact right position for it to pass through this eye. If there's the slightest disturbance, or if there's something wrong with the thread itself, it will miss the eye or be unable to pass through. However, unlike threading a needle, Occult Matrices don't usually offer second attempts. This makes it all the more important for the God Machine to avoid disruptions to its infrastructure. A successful Occult Matrix generates an output. This could be used to bring an angel into the world, summon entities from other dimensions, open portals to distant places, or other impossible feats. An output can also be seen as a way for the God Machine to enable more complex infrastructure, which in turn can be used for more powerful outputs. For example, if summoning a particular angel is a project's intended output, 6 people being simultaneously ritual murdered at the foot of 6 identical obelisks could be the Occult Matrix required to generate that output. But because the obelisks don't build themselves, the God Machine must have first created infrastructure to bring about those conditions. For this, it could spend generations or even centuries setting up infrastructures. This means that every piece of infrastructure must be connected to another, or entire structures could fall apart. This ensures that no infrastructure can be perfect. They have weak points that can shut the whole operation down. These weak points are called Linchpins. They can come in different forms, such as a town seemingly trapped in a specific decade, a servant of the God Machine who has turned traitor, or a creature meant to scrub a piece of obsolete infrastructure having missed vital pieces. Linchpins are proof that things don't always go according to plan. They can offer holes in the concealment that push angels to fall, or that create stigmatics capable of disrupting the infrastructure. Striking at a linchpin should always come with some kind of reward, such as thwarting a project or a greater understanding of the God Machine's designs. However, the player characters may face other consequences, turning many successful God Machine stories into bittersweet ones. There's no linchpin that can fully put an end to the God Machine, but it can subvert expectations, buy additional time, and perhaps save the day at a smaller or temporary scale. When designing an infrastructure for your game, you have the freedom to incorporate mortal or magical infrastructure as you wish. The game encourages you to be creative. By thinking in terms of infrastructure, you're able to apply a framework for how you could weave together your mystery, whether that mystery is seemingly grounded in reality or fantastical in nature. The God Machine often relies on mortal intermediaries and mortal infrastructures, both in terms of resource management and in terms of concealment. By incorporating mortal adversaries as obstacles in the player's mission to thwart the God Machine, it adds another level of horror to the game if those mortals are unaware of the fact that they are serving a ruthless cosmic force. It's not that easy to simply kill your opposition when doing so has moral and legal consequences for the player characters. When storytelling the God Machine, keep the following points in mind. It's neither cruel nor kind. It's calculating, subtle and effective. It has biases. It wants to preserve itself, its secrets and the status quo. Don't reveal its decisions. Let players discover its intents through its projects. It's slow to react. The player characters are too insignificant for you to give them its full attention. It doesn't think like a human. It doesn't show any emotions. It doesn't get frustrated or angry. If something doesn't work, it tries something else. It sees people as roles. Humans are only as important as their usefulness. It doesn't speak. If it wants a message delivered, it sends an angel to do it. It's not a discrete being. You cannot point at something and say that is the God Machine. Instead, it is the sum of its parts. Its command and control infrastructure, its facilities and occult matrices, its angels. When designing infrastructure for a game, consider what the God Machine's objective is and then define the occult matrix needed to produce that objective. Is the objective to summon an angel into the world? Then an occult matrix is needed to do so. Finally, identify what infrastructure is needed for the occult matrix to take place. If the occult matrix is that a specific person must be sacrificed at an altar to summon the angel, then what infrastructure is needed to ensure that this event takes place? There needs to be a logistical infrastructure to ensure that the sacrifice is there when the ritual takes place. Perhaps an angel or a cult is guiding them towards that purpose. Another infrastructure could ensure that other preparations are in place, such as a specific time of year, and a specific machine is constructed in the basement of a building. Then a defense infrastructure can be in place to guard the building hiding the machine. The players will need to identify the infrastructures in order to thwart the ritual and possibly save the sacrifice. Perhaps one of the player characters is the intended sacrifice, or one of their loved ones is. The storyteller also needs to define linchpins that the players can detect and exploit. This can act as tools to guide them along the path. They notice something that others do not, which is also why they are the right people to stop the Occult Matrix from taking place. Even if you don't intend to run a God Machine Chronicle, thinking in terms of infrastructure can be helpful in designing mysteries for other games. Ultimately, the God Machine is incomprehensibly huge, while human protagonists are small. Their actions have virtually no effect upon it, but a satisfying game should mean that some kind of effect is felt. Maybe the protagonists can grow alongside the projects they face as they learn more and more about the God Machine itself. Perhaps they thwart a project by saving a town at first, but the God Machine will eventually choose another town. Even if the plan continues at a larger scale, the protagonist can feel the effect of their initial victory. They saved this town at least. Who knows what the future holds? As they tally up these victories, they learn more about the grander plot. They start seeing the gears and get a better understanding of the patterns at play. They become better at finding linchpins to strike at. And who knows? Perhaps they eventually learn the truth about the God Machine itself and gets to challenge it directly. Until next time.